Hey! Do you guys remember amiibos? You know the little figurines that Nintendo pushed out during the Toys Alive craze that was going on during the time leading up to Smash Bros. For the Wii U and 3DS? I sure do. They didn't really do much, and that was that exciting. Outside of Smash, hell, even in Smash, they just kind of existed, allowing you the bulk of a CPU fighter for yourself. There was kind of just a novelty in having a statue of a character that you liked that generally didn't have merchandise. I remember a lot of amiibo back then being pretty hard to attain, such as Shulk, Ness, Lucas, and the topic of today's video, the Fire Emblem ones. The Fire Emblem amiibo, near the start of the amiibo's lifespan, had a lot of functionality. You could summon a phantom of said character in Echoes, unlock playable characters in Codename Steam, and what I wanted to talk about today, the Fire Emblem amiibo. Fire Emblem Fates, released on the 3DS, came with some of the best amiibo support seen to date. Certainly the best on the 3DS, providing the player with 4 extra units, with fully unique classes and skills tied to them, those 4 being Lucina, Robin, Marth, and Ike, all of which being surprisingly balanced for being essentially a set of DLC. I wanted to make this video to cover each one of them in a small bit of detail. Each amiibo came with a set of items per amiibo. You got 2 accessories to start with, the amiibo unit themselves, all of which had a PRF tied to them, and when I say tied to them, I mean literally tied to them. You could not remove these from their inventory if you tried. And lastly, something that you likely did not know, which is if you scanned them in one last time after you recruit them, and they went to work in an armory, you could obtain a generic brand version of their PRF that could be forged. But let's get on into it. Let's cover these characters. But I want to go in reverse order. So we'll start with Robin to begin with, shall we? Robin's amiibo gives you access to Robin as a playable character, his PRF Thoron, and 2 accessories, those being a dragon feather and his books. They look a little goofy on the back of people, I will admit, but I kinda like it. It looks like a backpack. Robin himself is also a pretty good unit, boasting pretty good stats. Robin's stats are pretty well rounded, with somewhat low luck being the biggest flaw in his kit. His growths are also pretty good, being in 45 to 55% range for most of his stats, except for speed, luck, defense, and resistance. His PRF Thoron also gives him a bit of an edge over other magic units available to the player, with him having a 12 might, 10% crit, 5 critical evade, and plus 5 resistance, giving Robin the ability to tank most magic damage. Solidarity and Tactical Advice give him a solid set for being a good support unit, with Tactical Advice giving the lead person an offensive pair-up, plus 10 hit, and Solidarity giving adjacent units plus 10 crit and plus 10 crit evade, making him useful as a pair-up bot right out of the bat. He later on gets a solid attacking skill in Ignis, and the best rally skill in the game in Rally Spectrum. Robin can also be scanned to work in my castle shops, and if he goes to the armory, you can buy a weaker version of Thoron, which can be useful if you're using any other magic unit in the game. But, in my opinion, if you aren't using Robin, you're probably using Leo, who has Brynhildr, which is way better than this. The extra resistance and the ability to be forged means it could be good if you'd like to put some investment into it, but I don't recommend it. Robin also has boss dialogue with all 3 of the returning Awakening characters, Selena, Laszlo, and Odin, when you fight him to recruit him. Speaking of units that come from Awakening, we're talking about Lucina next! Lucina's amiibo gives you about the same amount of content as Robin's amiibo, granting you access to 2 accessories, those being the bear hat and the butterfly mask that she wears in Awakening. You also get Lucina and her PRF, which is Parallel Falchion. And finally, you can buy Lucina's stock, which is a weaker version of Falchion. She comes in her class, which is Great Lord, being able to use lances and swords. She's also a pretty solid unit that is a great physical attacker, with great durability in her resistance and defense. Only major flaw is that her bases is that she's lacking magic, but since Amiibo cannot class change with a heart seal, this isn't really an issue unless you wanted the class changer to be a witch or something. Aside from magic, Lucina also has pretty standard growths across the board, with her HP, strength, skill, speed, and luck being above 50%, helping her maintain her standing very well. Parallel Falchion, while unable to attack at 1-2 range, is a strong weapon that deals effective damage to dragons, which, depending on which route you're in, can be extremely useful. It also grants Lucina +3 speed when it is equipped to her, which allows her to double units more effectively. The high accuracy also means it will hit, which in routes like Conquest is extremely useful. It also can be used to heal 10 HP as if it were a vulnerary. Lucina also has Dual Striker and Charm in her base kit, which gives her +3 damage when she attacks from a supporting position in a pair-up attack. This works well with her other base skill, Charm, which grants units in 2-tile radius +2 damage, meaning Lucina is a solid enough support unit for pair-up. With further investment, Lucina will also get access to Aether, which is a strong attacking skill which combines Luna and Soul. And Awakening, which gives her a massive boost to her Avoid, Hit Rate, Crit Rate, and Crit Evade. These two skills give her a meaningful increase to her offensive capabilities, although it should be stated that without a good amount of investment, Lucina will likely not reach level 35 in a standard playthrough until maybe the endgame chapter. Last thing of note is that the special weapon that gets put in stock in the armory if you scan the Lucina amiibo again after you recruit her is Lucina's Z-Stock. This item is basically a katana with a higher might, and it can be extremely useful for people who are doing a playthrough of Conquest where katana are unavailable. As with the Robin amiibo, the Awakening trio of characters also have dialogue with Lucina, which I always found pretty fun, personally. The next amiibo will cover some small spoilers for Radiant Dawn Path of Radiance. Just thought I would say that before we continue, because we're talking about the Radiant hero Ike now. Let's go, baby! Ike comes with 2 accessories, one referencing Laron's medallion, and also his pauldron, and also his PRF Ragnall. Ike's base stats are by far the most lopsided ones out of the bunch in Fire Emblem Fates, out of the amiibos at least. The stats are clearly edging Ike to be a tank or a heavy hitter, or both. Having a whopping 21 defense and 23 strength on his base stats. He has a huge weakness though with his resistance and speed, which makes him super weak to any type of fast magic unit, which in most routes you will be facing plenty of. However, his high strength and defense make him an excellent tank for routes like Conquest. If you can manage to nab him, he'll do extremely well, especially in Conquest, where you need good defensive units. His growths further enforce this role, with a high HP and strength growth, followed by a decent defense and luck growth. His resistance growth is incredibly bad, as this means he has little to no hope to build up a resistance to magic units. This weakness, however, is offset by his high defense as well as his PRF that is so good that you should never have anything but that equipped. We're talking about Ragnall, baby. Ragnall is not just a really good weapon that gives him a defensive buff, it also is an incredibly strong 13 might 1-2 range weapon that can activate offensive skills, crit, and also double. This makes Ragnall a weapon that is only 4th to the Yados and Royal Weaponry of Fates. The hit rate can be pretty low at time, which sucks, but with the ability to counter anything from 1-2 range, that is an amazing tool that makes Ike easily, in my opinion, the best amiibo of the bunch. Ike also gets skills like Heavy Blade, which gives him another +3 to his strength at the cost of 1 speed, which can make him even more of a hard hitter, and Veteran's Intuition, which gives him an extra boost to his critical evade, which can also be incredibly helpful to avoid being smacked with a crit. These 2 skills pale in comparison, however, to obtaining Aether. Aether for Ike is much more helpful as it can proc at 2 range with Ragnall, hitting Soul and giving him HP back, and Luna with Ike's strength is basically a confirmed kill if it hits. This is topped off with Strength Taker at level 35, which allows Ike to gain a buff to his strength stat every single time he kills somebody, which will be very, very often. Scanning Ike, once you recruit him, also gives you Ike's Backup, which is a generic brand Ragnall that is a 1-range weapon, and it only gives you +3 to your defense at the cost of 3 effective speed. This weapon is alright. It's a forgeable defensive blade, which can be helpful if you want to give a character some extra defense. There's just one more unit to cover, and out of the bunch, I think I enjoy this one the most when I replay Fates. That's right, we're talking about my man Marth, Mr. Our Cause is Just. Hero King Marth comes with a few things, those being Tiki's Tiara and Marth's Tiara for accessories. You also get Marth's PRF, which is Falchion. Marth has balanced stats leaning towards that of a swords master, instead of how Lucina kind of leaned towards a hero or mercenary. Lodestar has a higher speed stat and a lower strength. His resistance and strength is slightly lower than that of Lucina, but he has a higher skill and speed, ensuring that he has a high hit rate. Lodestar also comes with inherent crit, not dissimilar to that of a swords master. This makes Marth an incredibly hard and fast hitter. Marth's growths are also geared towards this, with a higher skill, speed, and luck growth, and with a lower strength and defense and resistance growth, Marth won't get that much more defensive, but he will get more accurate, and get crit less often than the other 4 amiibo. Marth also has access to Falchion, which is pretty similar to Lucina's parallel fashion. It is a little stronger and has inherent crit plus 10. It also, like parallel fashion, can be used to heal Marth for 10 HP. Again, the effective damage against dragons can come in handy a lot, because in most routes, you don't get a Wormslayer until you're near the end of the game. Marth shares one skill with Lucina, that being Charm, which makes him for a good support unit, like how Lucina does. He also comes along with Dancing Blade, which gives him a buff to his speed at the cost of 1 defense. He does gain Dual Guardsmen at level 15, which gives him a similar niche to Lucina when he's supporting a unit in para. The shield gauge fills up twice as fast while he is in the supporting position in guard stance. Unlike Lucina, Robin, and Ike, the only thing Marth gains for reaching level 35 is Speed Taker, which, unlike Strength Taker, does not help him much since he already has a high speed stat. Last thing of note is that his weapon that he sells when he works in the armory after you recruit him, which is Marth's Butha. Sorry if I mispronounced that, I don't know how to pronounce everything. It may not look as good as the others that add defensive stats or offensive stats, but that critical evade plus 10 can eliminate those pesky plus 1 crit rates that are always really scary. It also has a pretty good might with slightly lower hit rate. But yeah, those are all 4 of the amiibos in Fire Emblem Fates. Real speaking here, Fire Emblem Fates is one of my favorite Fire Emblem games, just because of a lot of factors that I couldn't even begin to get into in this, so I've been meaning to want to make some videos on it. Obviously, you all have seen the pair-up video, and of course, if you made it this far, you also saw this one. But let me know if you want to see more Fire Emblem Fates stuff, because I wouldn't be mind covering niches of characters, as well as other things. I would have delved into more character-related things with these 4, but the amiibos don't have supports, and I didn't want to apply a patch to give them supports and review it as if it was a part of the base game, which I think is kind of silly if I were to do that. But anyways, if you like what you watched, please give me some engagement. I would love to be able to do this more and actually hear from people that watch it. Thank you. Bye.